been a while, hasn't it? By the looks of this channel, you'd probably thought it was dead. I think a more accurate description would probably be a coma. And now that I've woken up, I have absolutely no idea what's going on in the world around me. Especially now. I mean, what is this? But you know what's more interesting than getting out of a coma? Immortality. Having the ability to live past your expected lifespan tenfold. With an inability to die. Outlasting everyone around you. Those you care about. Those you love. Those you hold dear. Only to be outlived by a society established before you, if you don't outlast it first. Garfield, everyone's favorite cat. That lasagna-loving feline, that Monday-hating mouser. Who doesn't love that titular tabby? I mean, he's the original fat cat. Now, I know what you're thinking. Josh, what are you talking about? There have been a lot of fat cats before Garfield. You know, you got Heathcliff, the MGM lion, the Monopoly man. No, not one fat cat existed before Garfield, and at this rate, I don't think there will be any fat cats after Garfield. Not that I think that fat cats will stop existing once Garfield stops, or vice versa, or whatever. No. I think that Garfield will outlast life itself as long as computers outlast life. Now, why do I think this? Well, there have been many interpretations of Garfield outside of the original creator that have kept him pretty fresh these past few years. I think we are reaching the Garfield singularity. Or the opposite, I don't know. The point where there requires no effort to make a Garfield comic. In reading the recent comics, I think I know how we can get there. Just to note before we get too far in the video, most of my info comes from Wikipedia and my own experience and knowledge. I'll be the first to admit, I am not the resident YouTube Garfield historian, Garfield DeLorean, whatever you want to call it. Now, in order to reach the Garfield singularity, we need to answer a few questions. First, Jim Davis started a daily comic strip in a local newspaper called John in 1976. Later, he renamed it to Garfield in 1977. And on June 19, 1978, the comic was first introduced into the Sunday strips. Since his creation, even before he became a headlining act, fans adored him. And by design, too. Davis has said before that his intention with Garfield was to create a marketable character. His designs evolved to be more friendly and marketable. What was once a grumpy mound that squinted through small eyes became the bipedal, wide-eyed wonder we know today. And with that marketability came merchandise. And oh did the merchandise come. Shirts, shoes, socks, pants, glasses, pencils, stickers, notebooks, pencil bags, calendars, pencil cups, tableware, tablecloths, glassware ready to take a picture, keychains, bills with the lion made, erasers, sticky notes, neck nails, even notes, posters, toasters, every type of coaster, we didn't start to go. And somehow he is still kicking. After all these years, somehow he is still there. If you do the math, cats aren't supposed to last that long. So that begs the question. As I said before, Davis had one main goal when making Garfield, to make a good, marketable character. Now, I've taken approximately 0 classes on marketing, but I have heard this more than once before. Say you have a child, and they draw a picture of your character. If you are easily able to recognize that character from that child's drawing, then you've got a really good design. And I mean, looking at Garfield, that's easy to replicate, right? You know, you got the eyes. Yeah, and then you got an oval right here. You got these little bulbous things that are like cheeks, kind of. They got 3 dots on them. Got a smile, kind of. He's like round. I don't know. He's like kind of round, but he's not really round. And like, oh yeah, and like the ears kind of like meet at the head. He's usually got like got his eyes like flat like this. I forgot about those black lines. See? Garfield. Don't you want to slap that mug on a mug? His design evolved over time. It took almost a decade to get from original Garfield to the Garfield that we know today. So what hooked early readers? Well, him, obviously. That's why his name's up there. People just loved his character, all with him being a cat. Okay, so his characters aren't that complex. That's what makes them so much easier to relate to. In most of the first comics, nearly every single comic was about the mentality of cat and how wacky having a cat can be. I'm sure anyone watching this video has at least a handful of people that they know own cats. I think it's safe to say that a lot of people were going to relate to this comic. And the jokes wrote themselves. Well, not exactly, but they very well could have. Nearly every early Garfield strip seems like a cat story that someone told Davis and then made into a comic. It just feels like anyone could have wrote these stories. And you know what? I'm gonna make one now. When I was younger, my cat got into a scuffle with a raccoon. It was near comical. They were taking turns throwing each other up against the window. At least that's what we thought happened. We only heard the windows getting hit and the blur of two things throwing each other around. Now, at the time, we were worried sick, but I'm sure if I told that to Jim Davis, I'm sure he would try to find a funny spin on it. And I think I know the funny spin that I would take. So I'm imagining a comic with John sitting quietly on his chair, then with a crash, Garfield flies through the front window. John says, "Raccoon's out again?" And Garfield says, "Not for long, get me another window." And boom! There's a Garfield strip that I thought of in like 30 seconds. And you could have like a mini arc with the raccoons and like the interspecies diplomacy of the neighborhood. And honestly, at this point, I'm just asking for a job. Jim Davis, please get me a job writing Garfield comic strips. I mean, I know I started making this video to make fun of how formulaic Garfield is, but if a slice of Garf is on the table, you bet your ass I'm biting. With that kind of relatability, he had a solid foothold on his initial audience. But you can't keep making cat jokes till you croak. And although Jim Davis did not croak, he did eventually stop making only cat-centric jokes. Nowadays it's more just how you say, "Ouh de chat," or anything trending, or anything really. And I mean, once you come to terms with Garfield being a cat, you don't have to make a cat joke every day. Which is great, because that pretty much opens up all jokes, except for most jokes. Davis was definitely limited in what he could make jokes about. There would have to be some major stretching in order to get some jokes for the adults in, like Disney. But unlike Disney, we know that Garfield is lazy weight. Well, what I mean is that Garfield's delivery doesn't always land weight. Anyway, there's more than just the type of joke that lets Garfield last this long. There's also the frequency of jokes. In any given Garfield strip, there are 0 to 2 jokes. But because Sunday's a longer strip, let's throw Jemanuel a break over here, and let's say he publishes 8 to 9 jokes a week. Doing the math with those averages, we can determine that Jim Davis publishes, on average, roughly 416 to 470 jokes per year. Now, keep in mind, we are assuming that every single comic has a joke in it, and that Sunday has 2 jokes. So we're being very generous here. Now let's take a look at an article that counted jokes in sitcoms, I guess. On this list, most sitcoms or shows average out at about 4.5 to 5 jokes a minute. Most of these shows have 22 minutes of airtime. Using these numbers, we can calculate that most of these shows, on average, have anywhere from 88 to 110 jokes per episode. Basically, any sitcom beats out the number of jokes that Jim Davis puts out in a year in the first 5 episodes. Some of these shows run for 10 episodes, some of them run for 22 episodes a season. So that means that quantity-wise, Jim is blown out of the water. Now, quality-wise, we'll get there in a minute. So to recap, let's go over why Jimmy Jam Job Jubilee can keep on making this comic for as long as he wants. He's marketable. He's got a cute face, he's easy to recognize. He's a cat. A lot of people like cats, probably. 3, he's relatable. He was basically built for people to say, "Oh, I remember when Whiskers did that last week. Oh, he's such a stinker." 4, he can make any joke he wants now because we already know that Garfield's a cat. I think that's what that step was. And finally, there aren't a lot of jokes you gotta tell. You can tell 1 or 2 a day, maybe skip today for a punchline on Tuesday, you know what I'm saying? Now with all those points considered, I think Jim Davis has opened himself a big old blank canvas that he can do whatever he wants with. I'm sure not every joke has to be a quality one, but I'm sure you can put out some stinkers every now and again while stockpiling good comics, right? I mean, with his experience, there have to be a good amount of good comics, right? Now we're getting the reason that I made this video in the first place. I went back and I read 7 months worth of Garfield strips. I had a few in mind when I started the video, but I wanted to get a good sample size, so we know what we were working with. I'm also doing this to find new themes. Going into this, I knew the 2 common themes of Garfield, like everyone knows, being lazy and eating. Everyone knows that. And I mean, for a while, those were like exclusively Garfield things. But after looking back, it looks like a lot of the main characters share these themes now, and they're just all dialed back versions of Garfield. Now, when I say main characters, I'm not talking about characters you see like once every 2 weeks, or like people that were main characters but aren't anymore. I'm talking about people that are in the forefront constantly. This is a bit of a combination category. I had 2 different categories that kind of felt like the same thing, but to Jimmy Joe's credit, this combination category is the smallest category, if you don't count the comics that I actually liked. There are some that came very, very close to not having a joke, but there are 2 that I can point at and say, ha, no one laughed at you, except then. And alongside those 2 comics, there are 4 comics where Garfield added nothing to the joke. I did not know what it was like for a comic book character to phone in a performance. Until now. What, was the comic hinging on Garfield sitting there doing nothing? Or did he need the paycheck that badly? You know who needs that appearance check more? Lyman. Wonder what he's up to. For a comic about a lazy cat, we probably should have expected a little bit of laziness from the comic itself. In the 7-month span, 11 comics fall under the categories of half the panels being the same, or all of the panels being the same save the speech bubbles. Speaking of laziness, of these 11 comics, half of them are about being lazy, 3 of them are specifically about staring at a wall, and 2 of them are about tofu. These are 2 different comics that suffer from IPS that have basically the same joke about tofu. This is kind of a tangent, but there are a lot of jokes specifically about tofu. Not about like being vegetarian or like not eating meat. I mean, like there are like 1 or 2 of those, but a lot are specifically about not liking tofu. I actually had to go back and confirm, but there are 2 jokes back to back near the end of November that are specifically about tofu. And John is on both ends of the gun in these comics, but the comics have the same joke. Me when tofu, me when not tofu. You could say these jokes are identical? Not really, but it's pretty lazy. This is a segment where Garfield asks Odie a reader-submitted question. There were 11 in the 7-month span that I read, and if I'm being honest, I kind of liked it. Well, I liked it better than I liked the other comics. It's a newer way to tell jokes for a comic that's been telling jokes for 40 years. So that means we are disregarding Odie's spin-off in our formula because we hate change. We gotta keep it simple. That's it. Now while I'm disregarding it, I included it because it was a noticeable pattern in the newer comics. And I also wanted to set up that comment section later in the video. I also wanted to show you this picture of Odie busting a move. Woo, damn! Look at him go. Look at him go. Ooh. Oh, look at him go. What's he doing? What's the move? He's a picture. He's a picture. He's a picture. This is the main homage technique of Garfield. You know when you're watching one of your favorite shows and they've got an episode that's styled like another show or like a movie or something? So imagine that show is Garfield, except Garfield is sitting right next to you watching that episode of Garfield with you. There's some other comics that kind of dealt with TVs, but of the 213 comics, there were 16 whose joke laid solely on the TV. That was it. That was the entire joke. Maybe Garfield had a quip. That's it, though. Now, this would have actually been earlier on in this, but if it weren't for good old Jimmy Boy giving us a Halloween special, we wouldn't have had 7 comics in a row based on Garfield sitting on the couch watching TV. I understand there's a little bit of a pandemic going on, so you can't exactly have Garfield going out, getting his candy. Oh, what a shame, what will Garfield do without his Garfield candy? But 7 comics in a row with the same setup and same kind of punchline is going to be noticeable. But you know what else is noticeable? The template scenes are kind of like identical panels, except it's not the panels that are the same, it's basically the comic setup that's the same. Typically this involves one character and another character talking with each other. You know, that's pretty much it. Typically they've got the same characters. Typically they face the same way, you know, they face towards each other. Sometimes they're flipped. Typically it's the same background. Typically it's the same kind of joke. Typically it's the same kind of setup. Typically it's the same kind of punchline. Typically it's the same kind of comic. Now, this kind of comic makes me think that good old Jomuel over here either has 50 of the same comic with empty speech bubbles ready to go, or he just uses an advanced version of the Garfield, you know, comic creator, which is now dead. Thank you, Flash. Goodbye. Most of the template scenes that I've found typically involve Garfield and Girlfield, with the runner-up being Garfield and Guard Dogfield. Now, you could go back through this, you could find others that you think might be formulaic, and you could argue that the ones that I found aren't as formulaic, but I've seen it enough that I think it's noticeable, like when Garfield's talking to the mouse. Mouse talks about cheese. Mouse is right there, Garfield's right there, talk about cheese. I know what I'm getting into when I see a mouse in a comic. Across the 7 months, 17 of the comics were template scenes. Let's step back and look at these numbers again, because we're almost at the end of this. 7 months. 7 months is a long time. 17 comics is a lot of comics. 17 in 7 months. About 8% of the comics involve this. 1 in 12, around that. I don't know. Most of like the first categories, those are small potatoes, like 2, 3, yeah, 2 or 3 in 7 months, you're not gonna notice. Those are small potatoes compared to this and also the next category. And this next category, I truly believe that this is a hidden theme of Garfield, the comic, not the character. It's not really hidden at all. I just didn't know it going in. I probably could have guessed it though. That theme is, drumroll. Now I know what you're saying. This isn't like other categories covered in this video so far, but keep in mind, I did not select every single comic in that month span. Most of the comics I did not pick, and most of the comics that are covered in those other categories, typically deal with Garfield's character traits. Food good, and sleep good. There are other character-centric comics as well, like Odie being a hyper dog, and Nermal being an insufferable asshole. But those are dwarfed by the sheer number of John Wacky comics. In the span, I found 28, and that's a minimum. I'm sure there are others too, but 28 comics. On average, that is 1 John Wacky comic per week. That is definitely more noticeable than when there isn't a joke. I think that, you know, compared to the other character traits other than Garfield, I think that that is deserving more of like a central theme. And while this category is called Wacky John, I think a more proper title is Haha, look at this loser, John. Maybe the person that titled this category could have thought that out. Yeah, outside of that, I don't have too much to say. I mean, yeah, he's wacky. Sometimes he's like too wacky, or sometimes he's not wacky enough, or sometimes his whack is expired. I don't know. Though he's never the right amount of wacky. It's always weird. Now, reading 7 months worth of Garfield comics at 1 a.m. on a Thursday night can definitely give me a good idea of what these characters are about. I think we need a second opinion, and maybe even a third. So for that, I'm gonna go to... And now we get to the meat of what makes Garfield great nowadays. You know, there are some communities that are dedicated to making these Garfield comics better by either turning Garfield into an eldritch god or completely removing Garfield altogether. But I would argue that the most enjoyment from Garfield nowadays is to go through the comment section on any Garfield comic. Specifically on GoComic.com, the host of the official host of Garfield Comics nowadays. And I want to go to my favorite comment section. Well, the comment section that I'm most familiar with. October 7th, 2020. This comic is a segment of Ask a Dog, where the reader asks Odie, which is smarter, pigs or dogs? And as we see at the beginning of the comic, Odie's eating a little bit of a sandwich. A little bit of a sandwich. A little bit of a sandwich. And it is revealed at the end of the comic that that sandwich that Odie is eating, it's a bacon sandwich. Ha. Ha ha ha. Ah ha ha ha. Ah ha ha. Ha. I think the thing that I hate most about this comic is that there is a joke. It's not told, though. It's pointed at. Like, hey, look at that joke over there. That's a joke, right? That's a joke, isn't it? Think one of those jokes would be in one of these comics? At least that's what I feel. Anyway, let's start off with the top comment on this comic. And also keep in mind, I heavily encourage going out and finding funny comments on this website, but don't harass anyone I show in this video. Please, 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 especially one person. You'll see who he is. I love him. Please don't harass him. How does the author of this letter know Odie was eating a bacon sandwich? A valid question that is. Now, while it looks like there's about to be a heated debate in the reply thread, the question is immediately answered by the next comment in the thread. And the one after that. And the one after that. About a quarter or a third of the replies to this comment are parroting what the first reply says or agreeing with him. But this one stood out. Not for what it says, obviously, as I said, it's just the same thing. But for who replied to it. This was the first time that I met the true protagonist of GoComics.com. This was the first time that I met Andy Moser. In reply to this comment, Andy Moser left this beautiful reply. You can call this the Great Bacon Debate, in my opinion. Hashtag bacon talking. Smiley face. I don't know why I went Southern with it, but I am going to keep that. Oh my gosh. In this original reply, there's a few tangents made, like the moderators, like the moderator being Garfield, can interject with follow-up questions. But the thing I like about Andy is he can take a tangent and take it 5 times farther. Something you will see is there's a pattern to Andy's comments. The statement, then there's maybe IMO. Sometimes it's in his opinion, sometimes it's not. But you know, it's the Great Bacon Debate, in his opinion. He can't hey, you can call this the Great Bacon Debate. In my opinion, it's just my opinion. You know, we're just throwing opinions out there. Even though that wasn't an opinion, that was kind of, I mean, it's verbose, but it is an answer. Which, I mean, I guess it's an opinion, but it's a right opinion, I guess. That's what an answer is. And then he follows that with a hashtag. You'll see that the at David, that's blue. So you can like click it and see things. The hashtag is black because GoComics.com does not support hashtags. So he's just put hashtag bacon talking at the end of that for not really no reason. If he keeps on doing it, there's gotta be a reason. But he does it without there being functionality to support his hashtag. I gotta ham this up and reason why I find this so funny. I was on the floor when I heard bacon talking. And after that, of course, smiley face. I love the Andy structure. And he's got something for everything. He never comments, well, maybe sometimes he does, but most of the time, he never comments once. So in reply to this comment, Andy has this to say. That is what ABC's Paula Ferris would declare on TV. Hashtag bacon news. Ew. I love that he cited specifically Paula Ferris. I mean, has he read the other comments in the section? A lot of people would declare this, but the fact that he backed it up with ABC's Paula Ferris, and of course, back it up with bacon news, and of course, the smiley face. When we initially came across these hashtags, we went to Twitter immediately to see if anyone had used them. no one had used any of these hashtags. Not only is he using hashtags on a site that doesn't use hashtags, he's making new ones that I thought a lot of people would have been using these, but no, they're very obscure or not at all used. And ooh, is it great. Not too far after this comment, there's a big old curveball thrown in this comment section. In Asia, they eat dog sandwiches. Now keep in mind, all these comments are technically in reply to this question. I have no idea how dog sandwiches relate to the note author or whatever. I'm here for it. I'm all here for it. And in reply to this, we get this insight from Andy. Chinese also eat rat po' boys, FYI. Hashtag exotic foods. A smiley. I had to look this up earlier. Rat po' boys exist. I'm not really sure what a po' boy is. I'm not really sure what a boy is, or why he's made of po', why there's rat in there. But yes, I guess they do eat rat po' boys. As I said earlier, Andy will take a tangent and take it 10 times farther. Because, you know, like, oh, I mean, I guess dog eating sandwich. So, oh, yeah, Asia, they eat dog sandwiches. But then we take that and go, rat po' boy. Rat po' boy. How do you just come up with rat po' boy? Someone's talking about dog sandwiches. I better throw in rat po' boys. Rat po' boys need a little bit more representation, in my opinion. In my opinion, hashtag po' boy talk and smiley face. Now after this, there is a little bit of a blend in comments. As I said, Andy typically replies in bulk. But from these, we get this insight from the Moser himself. Odie would love to try a Peking duck sandwich if he ever visits China, in my opinion. Hashtag hi Odie, smiley face. He tangented off of someone's tangent and then took that tangent 5 times further. We got from asking, like, how did the person know that Odie was eating a sandwich? To Odie would like to try a Peking duck sandwich if he ever visits China. And also, of course, we gotta mention the hashtag. I'm not sure. Earlier I said, oh yeah, it's viewers submitted. Either he is actively engaging in the idea that Odie is reading these comments, or he's just saying hi. I don't know, he's just saying hi to Odie. I can't put in the words why I think it's so ridiculous, but so lovable. It's hard to do. And like all things you love, they have to come to an end. After that comment, that reply chain dries up. There's like one reply, and that's pretty much it. But that is only one thread in this vast comment section, though none are quite as robust as that one. In this one, Dean places an order in a comment section. Which one do I believe? Then China's mentioned, and Andy gets political. And oh boy, does Andy get political. Or does he? I don't know. I feel like when I do that, I imply it really goes political, but like, I plan to ride my donkey to cast my vote this November so that it has an election to always remember. I plan to make Trump look so feisty and feel so fiery that his face turns bright red like it's a cherry. Hashtag donkey beats Trump, smiley face. Kind of went Alex Jones on that one, but ooh, I just love it. Oh, I love it so much. Oh! This breaks form for Andy, because typically his first blurb is just a sentence, not like a big old paragraph. I don't know, how do you come up with, I'm gonna go to election on a donkey, and I'm gonna do it on a donkey, I wanna make Trump go and turn into a cherry like that girl from Willy and the Wonka, except it's not a blueberry, it's a cherry. And he's gonna roll around, it's gonna be so funny, and he's gonna be so fiery. Because I'm riding the donkey. There are some others that I didn't include, like how he mentions that Trump kept on calling it the China virus and the everything and the because of course China was mentioned, current situation. Inevitable. There are so many more great comments. I really can't include them all. There are 365 or 6 comment sections a year. They get at least like 20 comments. I just wanted to focus on this one, but I would like to leave you off with one out-of-context comment from the Moser Dozer himself. Waltzing Matilda a la Garfield, IMO. So what was the point of this part of the video? Anyone? Anyone want to throw out an answer? Well, what I learned is that I have to be more careful when I try to make videos like this. For up until today, I thought that there were 213 days in 6 months, not 7 months. I also have to make sure that my microphone is plugged into my camera, because this is my second time recording this, and it's currently 3 a.m. I've also got these for the Garfield formula. 1. Pick 2 or 3 joke topics, you should be good. 2. Make sure you have a punching bag character, one that can be anywhere and take any punch. 3. Reduce, reuse, recycle. This applies both to assets and jokes. 4. Of course, you gotta talk about those darn cellular phonulars. And 5. Not every single comic has to have a joke, you know? Cut back a week or 2, or 3, I don't know. Do what you want, it's your comic. Outside of those themes, I'm sure you could find a lot more subtle themes and other things, but keep in mind, we're trying to find a base formula for what makes Garfield Garfield. We're looking for big items. Speaking of, I've made my research public, so if you'd like to go in the description, there's a link. You can make a copy of that spreadsheet and take a peek if you want. Also, feel free to let me know down in the comments that I forgot to put every single comic under the no joke section. Now, with everything we've found, I think we can finally start to create a structure of what Garfield is, and we can finally create. Garfield is typically the mouthpiece of the comic, or the horn? Whatever. He typically sets the tone for the comic. He's a trendsetter, if you will. Typically, if someone's saying something, it's going to be Garfield. And if it's not Garfield, well, you better believe that Garfield's going to have something to say about it. Besides that, he's relatable. I mean, with such universal interests as, oh, food good, and oh, sleep good. You know, it's hard not to relate to him. Also, he's cute. Okay, well, he's not really cute, but like, he's easy to recognize. So, if we want a Garfield-type character, we need universal interests, or opinions. He needs to be easy to recognize, and he needs to be in the comic 80% of the time. Oh me, oh my, oh John. What happened? You used to be the everyman. Everyone related to you. You know, the cartoonist with the cat. You used to be the straight man, but like all of us, you bent from the pressures of time. But now you have accordions on cue, you mock mirrors, your socks are sewn per side. You're a wacky duality. You are both wackier than any belief and lamer than plain oatmeal. A modern John needs to be able to play both sides, roll with the punches, typically be dumb, and at least in Garfield's case, be an owner or like a provider. I don't know, that might not be required, but in this case it is, because we're going off the Garfield formula. Garfield's a pet cat. Oh, and another thing, John has a girlfriend, Liz, but like, she doesn't do much other than like react to what John is saying or sass him or the other 2 characters. Speaking of the other 2 characters, let's get to our 3rd character, Odie. Odie hasn't changed a lot from when he was introduced. All you really need to do is be hyperactive or loyal, lovable, be rivals with Garfield, and also be whatever the hell you want. He's basically a wild card. I mean, you got a joke about a dog? Well, hey, Odie's a dog, get Odie. You got a joke about pets, you know, racing to get food from each other? Oh, hey, Odie's a pet and Garfield's a pet, get Odie. If there's a joke about John getting locked out of the Wi-Fi from a master hacker, get Odie. It's that simple. Now, there are other wild cards too, but we don't have to keep them too much in mind, and here's why. For all other characters that I have not already mentioned for this portion of the video, here are their traits. They show up like once or twice a month. They have like 1 or 2 traits. Garfield has to have the last say, so he can own them, so he can be epic. Epic Garfield. With that kind of definition for a side character, you can make an entire cinematic universe, but most of them, their only purpose is going to be being in one joke. With Mouse, you got cheese. With Spider, you got Spider. I don't know. But to Jam's credit, a lot of these characters were properly introduced, you know? They had an introduction comic and then a lot of comics to build up their character within the universe. You know, examples of this are like Normal and Now keep in mind, because your Garfield character is so likable and, you know, relatable, if characters oppose that character for too long, people aren't going to like those characters. So if you want characters to continuously, you know, appear next to Garfield, they eventually have to become Garfield. Now, they don't have to become 100% Garf, but you can't have John talking about cat burgers for an entire 42 years. You gotta have him eventually become the cat burger, or whatever that is, I don't know. Now, you may have noticed that throughout this portion of the video, and a lot of the video, I've been talking about Garfield-type characters, not specifically Garfield. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this, and at this point in writing the script, I don't want to go back and check, but I'm using this Garfield comic to make my own Garfield-like comic. Making a comic with pure Garfield essence should be enough to make that comic a success, and hopefully ensure that I don't have to get a job where I have to think too much. Now I think it's high time that we finally start. First, I'm going to need someone to be my Garfield, and I'm thinking we go to an opposing market in the cute animal category. Now, close your eyes. When you think of a cute, popular animal that is not a cat, what do you think of? That's right, chinchillas. And to play off Garfield's name, I also chose the name of a late president. Meet Fillmore the Chinchilla. He hates paying too much in income taxes and loves himself a good slice of pizza. What style of pizza? Whichever one you like, kiddo. Now, John, he kind of looks plain. I feel like he was designed that way. So I think we could have a step up on our competition by, you know, kind of making our John, you know, a little cool, a little chill, a little relax, you know? So what I think is we ditch this blue-collar man, give that hair some flair, and boom! We got our John. His name is, his name is Ron. He likes, doing taxes? I don't know, let's we need an Odie. Oh, what is to a chinchilla like a dog is to a cat? Now, I see the look in your eyes, and I think we're looking on the same track. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna count down from 3. I'm gonna count 2, 3, and on 3 we're gonna say it together. Okay? All right. Ready? 1, 2. Owl. It's an owl. It's an owl. That's what it is. It's something I knew off the top of my head. It's 100% fact. I did not have to Google it. You can look it up if you want to, but I knew it because I know things. I know things. Okay, what does the owl do? Oh, what would be funny is if he hit Fillmore on the head with a stick, like the bonk meme. You know, that's popular nowadays. And I'm sure the kids are going to eat that up because they are sure as hell not going to find taxes funny. I know that for a fact. Because I know things. So we got that. What's the name going to be? Name. I don't know. I don't know what the name's gonna be. I'm not feeling too good right now. Oh, okay. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. Why do I feel so lazy? Oh, what happened? Oh, I must have passed out. Oh, I knew I wasn't feeling too good. What's this? Hey, look, guys. It's Fillmore. I must have blacked out and finished the first issue. You know, let's give it a read, shall we? It's the first of the year. You know what that means. April 15th is just around the corner. I hate taxes. I got the idea to make this video late one night when I first read that comment section we read earlier. I was cracking up reading the comments from people that were confused on the joke, weren't even commenting on the comic itself, or just saying the most ridiculous sentences that I've ever seen. And I realized I'm getting more entertainment out of these people who aren't really trying to be that funny than I am the thing that was designed to make me laugh. When I was younger, I used to stay up late reading Garfield books under the light of the hallway. I had to snicker really quietly because, I was supposed to be going to sleep. Maybe I missed the days where Garfield was funny. Or maybe I missed the days where I would laugh at Garfield. Was Garfield always like this? Or did we both change? Or maybe it's just that I fear not changing. I mean, look at me. I've just spent an entire video talking to you about Garfield. So at this point, he's been on my mind for the past 2 months, like he was when I was younger. Or maybe I fear one day becoming Garfield, destined to one day finally become the truest form of myself, but to lose everything around me that once made me what I am.
So in conclusion, I give Garfield a 9 out of 10. It's got a little something for everybody, as well as the exaggerated swagger of an orange cat in his 40s.